Hello and welcome to the next video in my series on how to design a horror game or conceptualize a horror game, really. This is the follow-up to my series on the elements of horror, Horror 101 I called it, which was kind of the psychology and kind of just discussing in depth the various elements that go into making up horror, the genre of horror. This one is kind of conceptualizing a horror game to further the idea of what works in horror and why you do certain things in horror games. Kind of an application of what I talked about in the first series. So this video is going to be about creep out, creepy shit, creep out stuff. And going back through the other videos, I talked about doing modular storytelling where instead of having one core stories, you have a whole bunch of little stories that can kind of work together, and bits and pieces of them can be seeded through every time you start a new game, bits and pieces would be seeded through randomly that can lead you off on chains of story. Like each individual ghost will have its own backstory. There will be like some 5 or so larger stories that can be seeded through elements of them. Sometimes it'll be completely red herring, false information. Sometimes it'll be true, but it won't really lead anywhere, you know, because you don't actually have to have any resolution or conclusion or any big reveal for this sort of a game, because the whole concept of the game is that it's paranormal investigators investigating a haunted mansion. They're there to find ghosts. The mystery aspect of it is just spice. Make it a little bit taste the whole thing better, tastier, more interesting. So you don't actually have to have the mysteries lead anywhere. In fact, it's even scarier when they don't. So by having all this modular storytelling, we can have lots of different creep out stuff factored into it. The backstories can be kind of creepy. Taboo subjects like incest are always a good place for, and any weird sexual stuff is always good to mess with people and kind of screw with their heads a little bit. That can be involved in ghosts' backstories, or, maybe some backstory involving the whole mansion to a degree. Because some of the ghosts obviously will be involved in things that happen in the mansion. We can also kind of take a page from, say, the Ghostbusters game and do haunted artifacts. Perhaps the only core truth that will always be somehow involved in the game, perhaps, would be that one of the owners collected paranormal paraphernalia. Sorry, it's very dry. Like haunted artifacts, things that are supposed to be haunted, things that are associated with death and pain and suffering. And the whole mansion is kind of a museum to the macabre, basically. That could be something that can always be part of the game, the one constant. But of course, based on that concept, you can do myriads of variations. Okay? In fact, that right there is an interesting idea. Instead of it just being a mansion, it's actually a museum, and they're investigating it. By day, it's just a museum dedicated to the paranormal. But they're there at night when all sorts of weird shit is going to happen. In fact, they're spending a whole weekend there alone. Well, the 7 of them. Whereas normally you'd have whole tours and things would be okay. This is a scenario when they're putting themselves in a position where basically all the stuff in the house that's there can come out and play and not be worried about anything. Just different ideas, different ways you can play with that. So what's additional creep out stuff? With all the different backstories that you can have, like I said, incest and other taboo, weird sexual things are always good to mess with people. Cults, anything to do with weird religion is always good. Human sacrifice is always good. You know, you can use psychic flashbacks to show really wacky, crazy things that happened. You know, like really messed up parties and that where really crazy things happened and cult activity, all that stuff. Any of the random story elements that can be seeded at the beginning, you know, when you first start playing and it builds the new map and story and everything. You know, all that, all the weird elements that you just talk about in the backstory, you can also do flashbacks and things to show them weird things that might have happened. Or it could just be a ghost fucking with them. You see, that's where you allow doubt to play with them and work its magic. Just because they see something doesn't mean it's true. You know, if something happens to one of the friends, one of the 7 people, or the 6, other than the main character, you can find the corpse somewhere. Being isolated is always a great way to fuck with people. And then, like I talked about, the random events happening, wrongness events, I call them. Like a portrait changing. You know, you have all that stuff happen randomly. And, you know, again, subtle, sometimes obvious. And over time, it just creeps people out. You know, things changing when they shouldn't have. You know, and you combine that with atmosphere and creepy music and potential for harm. You know, you add all that stuff together and it just works so well to creep people out. You know, but really the best thing about the concept that we've got going here right now is just the potential for so many different things creeping people out simultaneously. You know, they could be investigating 3 different ghosts, each with its own backstory, each with its own creep outs, which leads them to different areas of the mansion, each with their own random wrongness events that take place to creep them out further. You know, and then in addition to the creep outs, then you also have to deal with the actual ghosts popping out and scaring the hell out of them, or possessing people, or attacking them. You know, I don't particularly care for the barrage method that a game like Outlast tended to use, which was just to constantly have you running away from somebody because you grow numb to that. But well spaced out periods of just kind of creepy things happening, and then ghost happening to take that tension and amplify the release of fear. You know, all that sort of thing. I like that sort of. That's my preferred method. So, plenty of opportunities for creepy shit. You know, it's just coming up with a backstory for each ghost. Every single backstory creates opportunities to add in more creepy stuff. Every single room is an opportunity to add in more creepy stuff, but not obvious. You know, not at first. You know, that's really the key. That's what I didn't like about Outlast, was that everything went from looking just kind of wrong to just being obviously fucked up way too fast. There's no time to be creeped out. It just, you know, the first 20 to 30, maybe in minutes to an hour or so of the game, when I watched the playthrough, was pretty good. But then after that, it was just the same thing over and over again. It got boring. It wasn't scary at all. So, yeah, I like the creepy stuff. And what I like about this modular concept is that it adds plenty of opportunities to just do creepy things. Random creepy shit. So I think that covers that topic pretty well. Usual YouTube stuff ending here. Give me that upvote, please. It's always appreciated. Leave your questions, comments, and ideas for other videos in the comment section. Subscribe if you haven't already, because it's the only way you'll know when I put new stuff up. And share this video and other videos of mine with your friends, family, colleagues, websites you frequent, and social sites you use. That's always appreciated. And I think that wraps everything up. So thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.